From Bitcoin, blockchain or distributed ledger technology to cryptocurrencies, tokens and initial coin offerings, it seems everyone involved has something to say, but can you really trust their advice? One man's had enough of weasel words and charlatans and is ready to give you impartial, independent analysis. With digestible blockchain bites, ICO analysis and need-to-know news on cryptocurrencies, author, speaker, transparency and clarity advocate and award-winning software innovator Barry James brings you Radio ICO.
Hello, this is Blockchain Bites from ICO Radio. I'm Barry James, and I'm delighted again to have with me Nick Cowan, the MD of both the Gibraltar Stock Exchange and the brand new, newly regulated Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange in the making. Welcome, Nick.
Hi, Barry. Thanks for having me, as always. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I think just to clarify one point in your introduction. So GBX has filed its application to the FSC to be licensed and regulated. So just so you know, it's an application that is currently in situ, and we hope that will be processed in the next sort of 6 weeks.
Great. So the FSC being the regulator specifically for Gibraltar, who I know you work with closely.
Yes, exactly, and in fact, one of the conditions that we wanted to meet was that we would be able to demonstrate that before the end of December 31st, we had demonstrated that we had the systems to transmit and store client assets using distributed ledger technology, and we demonstrated that. So in fact, we don't actually, just to be clear, need to be licensed and regulated in order to open GBX, because we have actually been given the green light to enter that transitionary period. So just to clarify that point. So we intend to open, by the way, at the end of March. So whether the license comes through or not, it actually doesn't matter. Right. The only condition we've got is we need to file our application before March 31st, which we've already done. Great.
Okay, well, perhaps we can come on to milestones a bit later on.
Sure.
But I want to talk a bit about the ROC token and the reaction to that and the take-up of that, which has been pretty impressive. But before we do, I know you were at the London Blockchain Week, and you've been at many events around the world over the last 3, 4, 5 months. What has the reaction been from different quarters? I'm sure there must have been a spectrum of reactions to the establishment of a fully regulated blockchain exchange.
Yes, and of course, when we first set out, I think I spoke to you, Barry, from our first conference, which was in Lisbon, the Web Summit back in October. And of course, we'd really just started out on our journey then to really just try to articulate to the marketplace that, we were going to be looking to open GBX, a rules-based system based around best practices with sponsors and etc. So, I think we were, absolutely stunned by the reception that the concept was given. I think that was a fair assessment. And I think secondly, as part of that, going around the conferences, we had also engaged not only just at conferences, but also side meetings with token contributors and participants and VCs, etc. And, to be honest, we were equally stunned by the acceptance and reception to the concept of the ROC token. And I think after I spoke to you, we had entered the back end of 17, and we decided to close the private sale on 31st of December. And I think I mentioned to you in our original podcast that it was a $27 million hard cap, if I recall. Well, I hope so, because that's what we were aiming for.
Yeah.
So we actually ended up with $21 million in the pre-sale, which was, and to be honest, we were heavily oversubscribed. So we were very pleased with that. And then that led us to the public sale, which was a $6 million public sale, which we completed last. Actually, it kicked off Wednesday, and then completed. We had the second round on Thursday. First Wednesday was 24-hour access for whitelisted preferred customers, and then everything that was left over, as well as the block that was being sold through Coin, which I can talk about in a little bit, that launched on Thursday. And that was the general public offer, and that sold out in 9 seconds, which you can imagine we were completely and utterly blown away again by. So
9
very,
seconds.
very...
Wow.
Yes, it was well, in fact, it was 1 second, believe it or not. 2.5 million was sold through Coin, and within 1 second, they were sold out, and ours was 9 seconds, because I guess they were using their exchange platform with funds already lodged, while we were using the Ethereum blockchain. So for us, it was 9 seconds, and the demand was overwhelming. So we were obviously saddened that we disappointed quite a lot of people who wanted to participate, but at the same time, we were absolutely thrilled by the fact that the market confirmed what they had been telling us, which was that they really think that GPX and the ROC token is something that is the timing is right and it's much needed.
Yeah, well, I want to go on later on to ask you about, is this the end for people? In fact, well, let's cover that bit now. Is this the end? Is there going to be another opportunity for folks to participate or become members?
Well, I suppose there's a short answer and a longer term answer. I think the short answer is that RKT will start trading on Coins Exchange on the 26th of February. That's the target date.
Yeah.
So that's in a couple of weeks' time, and in fact 2 weeks today. And obviously we hope that there is enough opportunity for people who missed out in the public sale to be able to pick up some ROC tokens on that day, and then we will also start trading ROC token on GBX, obviously as and when we open, which presumably I think will be about a month later, and then at some point in the future, but we don't know when, and even when we do know when, there'll be a supplementary white paper and a full offering with full disclosure, but there, we've got a reserve of ROC tokens which we've held back, and at some point we will release more tokens in the future, and and that will be another opportunity for people to participate further down the road. But I wouldn't have thought that that's going to be until next year.
Okay, cool. Okay, so can we talk a bit about the ROC token itself? So it's a utility token. Could you just expand on that a bit, though, in terms of what its utility is and what it will do for the holder, obviously apart from having a trading value?
Yes, well, I think we've tried to structure it really as two distinct utilities. I think one is in terms of fees, and I think secondly is in terms of access, but I think also thirdly there is an important topic to talk about, which is staking. So I think first of all, number one, the way we've structured it, Barry, is that the ROC token is there in the first phase for GBX for the sponsor fees. So we have sponsor fees for all listing fees through our token sale platform and all trading fees. Now, the first two have to be paid with ROC tokens. Trading fees you can pay in any currency you like, but if you use ROC tokens, you will be eligible for, at the moment it's a 33% discount. We might actually cut that even further to make it increasingly attractive. So, and then the fee structure, we at the moment have a number of other services. We have a fund administration business, which since I spoke to you in October, Barry, we acquired Grant Thornton's Gibraltar non-audit businesses, which is a largest fund administration business in Gibraltar, and as well as a large fiduciary business. So if you want to set up a company, or you want to move your fund here, or you want us to work out the administration side of your fund, we can do all that within the GSX group of companies. But all those fees you can also pay discounted using ROC token. And as we expand our ecosystem, you can also you'll be able to pay for all of our services within GSX Group. We want you to be able to use ROC token as a method preferred currency of choice, effectively. In terms of access, the way we've tried to structure this is there's a couple of things to understand about GBX, which is it's a token sale platform and a cryptocurrency exchange that is owned and managed by a stock exchange. So we think that's all pretty unique. But more specifically, the way it works generally today is if you want to participate in a token sale, you have to go through a whitelisting process, normally over and over again with the individual issuer on their individual platform. And that's all a little bit painful. So what we've done with Rock Token is, for those of you that whitelisted and registered for the Rock Token in either pre the whitelisting window closing on the 4th of February or even after that, you automatically get an account open on GBX. And that means and by the way, everybody got gifted 50 Rock Tokens as well. If you open an account, and even if you open an account today, we give you 20 Rock Tokens as an ongoing bonus. So now the point is the following. If when we launch, every single token that comes through GBX's token sale platform, you're already whitelisted. You have your account at GBX. You never have to do it again. It's just one-click participation, and you can participate in every single token sale that you're potentially interested in, that we approve. But equally, if you hold a minimum balance of RKT, which at the moment is $1,000 worth of RKT, then that first 24-hour window of every single public sale that comes through GBX of every single token, you will get preferred access. So there's actually a benefit to owning a minimum amount of Rock Token in order to be able to get ahead of the crowd for every single ICO that comes through our platform. So there's fees and there's access, and then thirdly, I'm just going to touch on staking and why that's relevant. So the staking mechanisms that we've put in place is really just to try to uphold our core values of best practices, governance, disclosure, etc. So what we do, Barry, is first of all, specifically regarding Rock Token, every issuer that comes onto the platform pays a listing fee. And that listing fee is actually, if you imagine a cake with 100%, what we do is we actually get you to pay 85% as a fee, and 15% is actually staked, all in Rock Tokens. And then if you uphold the conditions that we have in our listing rules, so you report on time and you're a good issuer, we actually give you back those Rock Tokens over time. And that's a really good way to encourage good behavior. But in the event that, for example, you misbehave or whatever happens, because stuff unfortunately does happen, then those Rock Tokens are retained by GBX, and then we ask the holders of Rock Token to vote on how we should use those tokens back into the community. For example, the Blockchain Innovation Center, which pieces of tech should we back. They don't go to us, those tokens, they go back into the community. And we think that that's a really, again, a really powerful tool for behavior. So I think between reduced fees, preferential access, as well as voting on community initiatives via staked tokens that are held by GBX, then there's a number of utilities there. And that's before we obviously build out the rest of our ecosystem, which will be tokenized securities on the main exchange, GSX. And again, Rock Tokens can be used there. The e-money system that we're looking to put into place this year, and other initiatives as well, Barry. So there's lots of different aspects to how RKT can be used.
Really clever. I can see that you are leveraging and building on long experience of how these things work and issuers can behave and so on. It's really clever. And I suppose some of those issuers will probably say, no, tell you what, we don't want those that 15% back. We're going to let that go forward to a charity or whatever. And that's good for everyone, isn't it?
Well, I think, we've tried to do it a couple of ways. So we've also said to sponsor firms, look, you're going to be bringing this issuer to GBX, and you're our first line of defense, if you like. What we also want you to do as a sponsor firm is you've got to take a percentage of your fees in the tokens of the issuer, and you've got to hold those tokens for 6 months. So again, it's not just Rock Token and issuers. We're actually asking sponsors to share as well in really the common interest to build the integrity and reputation of our marketplace. Because if we build, I think, a strong community based around best practices, that we believe, it probably sounds a bit self-righteous, but we believe that that's going to benefit the community in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. All doing our bit. Definitely. Okay. Well, as you know, we've got a keen interest in transparency in this area, and so yeah, we're on the same page. Okay, so we've talked a bit about the benefits of membership. Before we talk about the road ahead and the milestones to come, some of which you've mentioned already, can we just go back and I was asked in a previous interview about the way things are panning out with things like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies around the world and tokens around the world. What's happening in China, some of the stuff that's coming out of India and so on. And the question that was asked of me was, isn't Gibraltar, and I suppose you could probably talk about Singapore in this respect as well. Isn't there a wide range here? Aren't they traveling in opposite directions? What would you say to that?
I would probably disagree with you, and I would say the following. I mean, look, first of all, what has Gibraltar actually done? What they've said is we're taking the view that distributed ledger technology is probably here to stay. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think you'll find a regulator globally who would probably disagree with that sentence.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we all think blockchain is probably going to change our lives beyond ways which we probably know today. But for financial services, it certainly looks like there are efficiencies which can be utilized through DLT. So I think that's sort of a box that can be ticked. So what our government did 3 years ago was say, okay, well, if that's the thinking, then would it be smart to actually be able to have a regime whereby those that want to get licensed and regulated could come to Gibraltar, set up shop, and be licensed and regulated? So if you transmit or store client assets using DLT, you can come to Gibraltar and get that regulatory stamp. If you don't want to be regulated, you really don't want to think about coming to Gibraltar because we won't allow you in. So if you want to inspire consumer confidence, and by the way, you want regulatory certainty as a company so that you don't move to a country that tomorrow changes its mind, then we have that framework. And that framework is the DLT framework, and it's based around 9 principles. And it's all really extremely sensible, but it has the flexibility to be able to capture, innovative nascent technology, etc., because we're still not quite sure where this is going to go. So I think in terms of what our government and our regulator has done, then I think they're just further ahead perhaps than other countries and regulators. But certainly what we're seeing is governments and regulators abroad, it would appear, have engaged with our government and our regulator because they are genuinely keen and interested to learn the process that Gibraltar has been through. And I don't think there's anything necessarily particularly terrifying or frightening by having a regulatory regime where you can say to either a cryptocurrency exchange or an asset management company, you're using DLT, would you like to be licensed? So I think that's all very, very sensible. Yeah. So what our government and regulator hasn't done is said, okay, as well as DLT, we're also going to try to regulate Bitcoin. Because of course you can't. That's the whole point of it. It's a peer-to-peer payment system that was used after the collapse of the banks. So to enable payments between two parties without having to go through the clearing system of banks. So that's a completely different conversation. However, since 17 to $3.7 billion worth of token sales have been achieved, it's clear also that, let's just call them utility tokens, ICOs of utility tokens, i.e. not securities, they are also capturing the imagination. And what we have done here is there was a press announcement over the weekend from Reuters, and in fact they're making the official announcement, I believe, today here in Gibraltar, that our regulator and our government are going to start a second process, because that first one for DLT took the best part of 3 years. This one won't, by the way. But the second process is going to look at ICOs. The primary phase of ICOs, the initial bit, not when they've gone secondary in their trading. And what they're thinking here is, okay, we want to be able to try to add a layer of protection. So if you are involved as a promoter or an advisor of an ICO and you are based in Gibraltar, you are going to have to get licensed and regulated by our regulator, called an authorized sponsor. Secondly, if you are an issuer that is domiciled in Gibraltar and you want to issue a token, you are going to have to appoint one of those authorized sponsors. So what our government and regulator is saying here is, look, we can't control the world. We can't regulate cryptocurrencies, but what we can do is we can make sure that anybody involved in the advisory and promotion and selling, etc., of ICOs that are in our jurisdiction, they're going to have to be licensed and regulated. We don't want bad actors in Gibraltar because we've got this DLT framework. We don't want bad actors pitching up in Gibraltar, opening a website saying, Bodget and Scarpa ICO advisory for all your needs, taking their 200 grand fee and doing a generally rotten job. So this way, I think, in terms of making sure that sponsors, an authorized sponsor regime in Gibraltar is analyzed correctly, then and potentially implemented, I think either back end of this quarter or early Q2. By the way, I also welcome that because I think that's actually, by the way, funny enough, it fits in exactly with what GBX has been saying since day one. Yeah. So I think that's actually really exciting. So, but I think also, Barry, on a sort of broader note, I think, look, you've got to sympathise with regulators. You've got different jurisdictions with different communities that are, have different levels of participation and, let's just say, aggression with regards to trading cryptocurrencies. And in some of those jurisdictions, I think it'd be fair to say that you've probably got token contributors who don't know what they've bought and have probably lost all their money, but they don't realize it yet. And you've also got, unfortunately, probably uneducated people trading on unlicensed and unregulated exchanges, and they bought Bitcoin at 21,000. And I say 21,000 carefully because we know that the high was 20,000, but in certain jurisdictions, it was trading 10% higher. And those people were buying it for speculative reasons. And I think the regulators have just seeing people, with investor protection mechanisms effectively being thrown out the window. And regulators do what regulators do. They say, look, there's reputational risk here. There's investor protection at risk, and we got to do what we have to do to protect our investors because they are unfortunately probably not experienced enough to realise actually what they're buying and selling. So all we can do, Barry, as I think, as a jurisdiction, is to sort of lay out our stall thoughtfully and carefully, and to say, as a jurisdiction, look, we've been one of the first movers in terms of a DLT regulatory framework. We're probably going to be one of the first movers in terms of regulating, the selling and promotion and advice on ICOs, specifically from here in Gibraltar. And, I think that will develop further throughout 18. And I think, that there is a sensible and practical approach to regulation. And I think, if anybody's got that balance right, I'm pleased to say that from where I'm sitting, Gibraltar seems to be taking a pretty practical approach.
Certainly seem to be taking a lead, that's for sure. I mean, when I talk to, it's really interesting, when I talk to ICOs, issuers, I guess you might call them, or potential issuers, the ones I talk to anyway, are really looking for the best way to do it right, and sometimes taking on a huge amount of cost, but not always to great effect. Of course, there are the opposite, as you say. There are bad actors and people after a quick buck and take the money and run or whatever. And we're all wanting to, to disable that and push it out. And I believe will, and transparency, I believe, is a big part of that too. But what you seem to be saying here is that this next stage of regulation will offer those issuers a place where they can come, where the people who are advising them have a stamp of approval and they know they're going to get good advice. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's look, there's two ways to look at it. If you hadn't heard about the ICO discussion paper, which I've just mentioned, then in fact where GBX is coming from is really precisely that, and you touched on it just now in your sentence, that look, issuers, it's always a challenge for issuers to know, number one, is the advisor that they're talking to qualified? Is the participant and contributor looking at contributing to the token sale eligible? Have they passed AML and KYC? Are they actually allowed to issue a token? And you've just got this whole range of challenges and questions.
Yeah.
So the whole point of GBX was to say, look, we're going to remove that stress from your decision-making process.
Yeah.
When you come to GBX, is a trusted marketplace, and any sponsor that you appoint has been approved by us, and they've been approved by us because we believe that they are completely qualified and they meet our criteria to help you, Mr. Issuer, basically get your token sale away in an orderly manner under great advice. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to blow up as a company. It doesn't mean that your token sale is going to be a resounding success. You have to, but what you can do is know that the people who are looking after you are qualified. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you know that the contributors to your token sale, well, guess what? They have to have an account at GBX. They've been cleared for KYC and AML by us personally. So you don't need to worry about who's buying your token and who's advising you, because that's the point of GBX. So in terms of, I think if you wanted to appoint a Gibraltar specific person, then of course you could appoint somebody who's been authorized and licensed by our regulator. What we have discussed with our regulator is, of course, well, look, we see this as a global borderless business, and in fact we see 80% of our sponsor firms being from outside Gibraltar. So what the FSC and GBX has discussed is, in that case, GBX will be designated as the authorized sponsor. So not only will we be a licensed and regulated cryptocurrency exchange, we'll also be a licensed and regulated authorized sponsor, so that the FSC holds us to account. And then every sponsor firm that belongs to GBX comes under our umbrella. So you can be a Hong Kong issuer appointing a Hong Kong advisor that is a sponsor member of GBX. And guess what? That ticks the box, because we are your local authorized sponsor if you want to use our platform. Alternatively, you can be a Gibraltar issuer appointing anyone you like on GBX, because again, we would be the authorized sponsor. So you could appoint a Hong Kong-based sponsor. It doesn't really matter, because we would be the umbrella firm effectively. So that's effectively the fix, because we are going to be up and running. Our sponsor rules are already published, and in fact our listing rules are going to be published probably tonight/tomorrow. So we're I suspect 3 months ahead of where our regulator and government are in terms of the rollout. So we're cracking on merrily and regardless.
Okay, for those of us who are interested in keeping up to date with all that progress, where's the best place to do that?
Well, it's probably, the short answer is probably our Telegram channel, which is GBX Community on Telegram. But we also post everything on the GBX Facebook site, the GBX, or at least my LinkedIn. Everything goes up on there. And we've also got Medium, and we've got our own website. So, but we tend to try to cover everything. But in terms of hot latest news, the TG channel is where everything is basically being posted at the moment.
Okay. And just before we kind of leave the regulatory thing finally, as you say, different territories have different challenges and different difficulties. One of the most famous statements that's been made, attributed to Mr. Clayton, the head of the SEC, is he's never seen a token that isn't an equity token in some way or other. The ROC token isn't an equity token, is it?
Well, I think it'd be pretty hard for it to be described as an equity token. I mean, it depends how you look at it. I mean, I think we can we can certainly say we don't qualify under the Howey test to be, or we qualify to not be a security, if you like.
Yeah.
But look, it depends where Clayton's coming from, because I've seen different statements from him. I think one of his things is, look, if you can buy something at 10 cents and sell it at 20 cents, that's a security. It doesn't matter what service that provides, because our definition of a utility token is you are collecting revenue from contributors for a service or access to a network yet to be delivered.
Yeah.
Kind of, that's the catchphrase. Yeah. So there is absolutely no claim or benefit to ROC token holders on either the equity, the debt, the dividend, the P&L, the balance sheet, or anything else to do with GBX.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever. I wish I could tell you you're going to get X percent of our P&L, but you're not. Yeah. What you're doing is you're buying into the fact that this ROC token is going to be the fuel that drives our ecosystem over the next 5 to 10 years. And we hope that if we can get up to several 100,000 users on GBX as account exchange wallet holders, that is going to create a wonderful flowing ecosystem of the ROC token, and that's going to that usage will hopefully let's just say increase the utility.
Yeah I mean, as you've characterized it, and as you've said, trying to classify anything that can be sold from where it was bought, it means that we'd have to we'd definitely have to regulate all the retailers, wouldn't it, and reclassify everything that's retailed and can be bought at one price and sold as another. So it kind of doesn't work. But yeah, that's really interesting. And the ROC token, to be clear, is available to anyone worldwide who wants to buy and use it.
Well, in the token sale itself, the short answer to that would be no, because in fact what we did was we actually had to cut off several countries where we didn't want participants getting involved. Well, we did want them to, but we weren't comfortable that legally we could or should. So, for example, US citizens, and that's particularly ties into your comment, Barry, about Clayton. I felt, and we felt as an executive committee, that the US was such a fluid situation and full of so much uncertainty that we weren't comfortable selling RKT to US contributors, and that included, by the way, accredited investors. We just put a line through America. We put a line through China. We put a line through Japan. I mean, it's all on our website. But we only stuck to the jurisdictions where we felt that there was enough clarity, or in fact, a friendliness from the regulator to give us comfort that we were okay to distribute the token in those jurisdictions. And by the way, I think it kind of worked out 50-50 EU versus Asia, which was interesting.
Well, it certainly doesn't seem to have slowed you down, let alone stop you altogether. And the net effect seems to have been that the folks in the USA, which is often the case, are being excluded from something that's really very exciting. So moving on to the road ahead, you've already mentioned some significant milestones and dates to come. But finally, what should we be looking out for and looking forward to?
Well, I guess I suppose the milestones are the following. February the 26th is obviously a key date because that's when ROC token starts trading. And we will be actually hosting a bit of a live Facebook live streaming, launch party for the listing. And that's going to be listed on Coin at 12 GMT 1 GIB time. That's Monday the 26th. Yeah. I think after that, the second really big timeline is really when GBX opens for trading, and we're hoping that'll be probably the first week of April or so. Last week of March, first week of April. I think thirdly, we want to get the e-money license ready in Q2, and that's really, I think, important for us to be able to start helping a lot of our clients with regards to payments, because obviously a lot of the banking challenges that fintechs have out there right now are a bit of a nightmare. So we think that having the e-money license, I mean, that's going to be a huge help, allowing our clients to be able to move fiat around. We obviously want to announce that, fingers crossed, we hope that GBX has been licensed and regulated by our regulator, and we're hoping that will come through. We're hoping kind of end of March, early April as well, so it'll coincide with when we're open. And that will be, I think, super exciting. And then really the big one is, I think, later on this year, tokenized securities on the main exchange. So utility tokens, GBX, but tokenized securities. We're already working on the technology to basically get GSX digitally enabled, so that we'll be able to start listing and trading captured by securities legislation, equities and fixed income securities, which will be, cleared, traded and settled on the blockchain, reducing, we hope, costs and speed from T+3 to T+0. And that's really our big one for 18. So I think between getting the ROC token sale away, which we've done, seeing it trading on Coin and GBX, getting GBX license, getting the e-money license application in, and getting GSX itself onto the blockchain, means we're going to have a pretty busy 10, 11 months for the rest of this year before we go into 19. So look, the good news is we've had immense support from our token contributors. We wanted to raise $27 million. We've raised $27 million. That effectively is all funded and in to our account, and now we can do I said to the guys on Thursday after the token sale, well done, that's 6 years of hard work, and we're just now at the start line. So now we can get really cracking in terms of building what I think is going to be a super exciting token sale platform on cryptocurrency exchange, and really the first in the EU, which I think is equally exciting. And then also try to get GSX as the first stock exchange on the blockchain during 18. And again, ROC token can be used for all of those services. So I think it's going to be a pretty busy 18, Barry. But we're, as you imagine, super excited.
Absolutely. Well, huge congratulations to you on the team on all this progress so far. I know, because I heard them. There were an awful lot of people saying, well, this is really ambitious. Can they really do this? And you've justified my confidence in spades. So huge congratulations. I'm really looking forward to the next leaps forward that you've just outlined. And in terms of keeping in touch, I guess there's two things, isn't there? There's the hash ROC token. I mean, that'll people Google that, they'll find you, I guess.
Yes.
And then I'm just picking up from what you said earlier. If people come to your website, they can open an account today and get 20 ROC tokens.
Yes.
Just remind everyone of the URL for that.
Just go to gbx.gi.
Great. Thank you again for your time today, Nick, and I look forward to talking again when some of those milestones have whizzed past in a little while.
Anytime, Barry. You know where we live, so anytime you want to have a call with us, we love these calls, and the great questions as always from you, and we're at your service. And thanks for again your support and positivity and backing for what we're trying to do here. So we're honoured to have a friend in you, and please, we're here whenever you need us.
That's very kind of you. Thanks, Nick. I'm looking forward to it.
Great stuff, Barry. Keep well, and thanks ever so much to all your listeners. Thanks ever so much.
ICO Radio was brought to you by author, speaker, transparency and clarity advocate, and award-winning software innovator Barry James. Get in touch with the programme. Put yourself or someone else forward as a guest. Visit iconewsdesk.com. And if you've enjoyed the show, please leave a review. And don't forget to subscribe to get your next insights and interviews from the ICO Radio podcast.